Okay, good afternoon. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Linda Vergenio, and I am a language teacher and a translator at the Learning Co-op. And today we are in conversation with Craig Sheehy. Craig is a Spanish teacher and a TPRS expert, training expert. So, hi, Craig.
Hi. Hi, good to
So
see
to
you.
start with, if you can just briefly introduce yourself and tell us what is TPRS and how you got interested into it.
Okay. Well, my name is, again, like Linda said, I'm Craig Sheehy, and wait, I'm probably just talking to you, right? So yes, I'm Craig. I have taught Spanish since 2003. I started at Boise State University, and then I liked it so much that I started teaching in the high school and in the university. And so for 14 years, I taught for about 12 to 14 hours a day, high school during the day, college at night, and I just had a ball the whole time. So what is TPRS? TPRS is a method. It is a flexible method that's meant to make language natural and fun and engaging and very effective. We in TPRS we try to, well, it stands for teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling. Though there's not a whole lot of storytelling going on, it's story co-creating is
Mhm.
more like more better better descriptor. And and so it's a method that's meant to use stories to keep interest, this co-creative nature of stories to keep entertain each other, focusing on communication and not the language. And the idea is to make language go to the subconscious rather than the conscious brain. Instead of learning rules, we just do it by feel. And in the end, we load it with lots of repetitive, interesting, comprehensible language, with a focus on the high frequency words, because you get the most out of those. Then, I mean, you can make quick gain, very fast gains if you know the words that people use all the time. And so that's basically in a nutshell what TPRS is. Of course, there's a lot of going into the details, but and how did I get into it? I wasn't going to be a teacher. I was going to be something else. And while I was at school, I did well in my Spanish classes. I had lived in Ecuador for 2 years, so I already knew. I got to learn a lot of Spanish in Ecuador for over 2 years. And so when I was going through to get a degree in it, I did well. And near the end of before I graduated, I had the Spanish department came to me and asked if I would like to be an adjunct professor. And I'm like, sure, I could use some extra money. Let's go have some fun teaching some Spanish. And so I tried it, and I had fun. The reviews were fine, but something was disconcerting to me that, for example, they were required to do 3 compositions of 150 words each. And I'm embarrassed to say that I had to lie to them because they had no fluency. They knew some rules. All I did was have them memorize the rules and do the homework, and memorize the vocabulary and do the homework. I didn't know how to teach. I just went by what the book said, and I figured, well, if they knew what was in the book, they'd be fluent at the end. That's what books do, right? That's what I assumed. And I had to lie to them and say, after 50 minutes, class was 50 minutes long, I said, most of the kids were still there. They couldn't write 150 words in 50 minutes. So I just said, oh, we just say 150. We really just mean 100. Turn it in. And so when I got these back and I had to grade them, I had to tell them, Oh, you got a noun adjective agreement problem, a concordance problem, you got a verb conjugation problem, you got wrong word problem. I couldn't even understand what they were trying to say.
Wow.
They were saying stuff like yo lata mosca, which means I, a tin can, and then the mosquito, like
Hi.
the fly. And I couldn't figure out what they were trying to say until I translated to English and then said, oh, like, this is ridiculous. They're not making sense at all. And it was really hard for me to grade this. Well, so the second semester, I'm like, okay, I'm going to try something else. I tried games. I tried uh, more interesting topics, got the same result. So I'm like, wow, maybe I need just to lower my standards or just quit. So I decided like I wasn't going to do it anymore. They said, hey, can you stay one more semester? We still need adjunct professors. Please, can you stick around? I'm like, fine. So I went and looked online and I found the name Blaine Ray. And Blaine Ray is the founder and the inventor of the TPRS method, the originator of it. It's been built upon since then, but he was the originator of it. And turns out that Blaine Ray happened to be my high school teacher. And I remember loving his class. So I'm like, why is this guy famous? So I bought his DVD on what to do. And he was coaching a teacher to teach German.
Mm-hmm.
And after that 30 or 45 minutes of him coaching her how to do German, I just realized I was speaking German. I could tell a whole story based on in German. And I had never learned German before. I didn't even know about German, but I could speak that. I could tell that story. I still remember the story today. And I found that very intriguing. So I went and tried it, as terrible as it could be, at the university. And on their very first composition, they were all done within 30 minutes. Most of them within 20 minutes, had all 150 words done. And the errors I got were things like, yo tiene un gato.
Okay.
Well, at least they were communicating. I understood what they were trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, this is easy to grade. The grading time went down. Their confidence went up. They could actually do something with the language. And I thought, this is cool. And it just gave me a great feeling. I'm like, this is going to be my career. I'm going to do this. And that's how I came into TPRS. It's kind of a long story, but sorry about that.
It's interesting though. I mean, I can kind of understand what you were going through, because when I taught Italian, just because Spanish, Italian, their grammars are fairly similar. That was my nightmare. How do I teach these kids to speak correctly, without just boring them to death with grammar? So that was my my hurdle when I was teaching Italian in high school and middle school.
Yeah.
So if you were to say the advantages, what are the advantages of TPRS? Is it like it really makes helps with language acquisition? What else?
Yeah, so for the student, the advantages for the student are confidence and tremendous gains, because you make it more of a communication and less of a linguistics class. And so you're able to produce fairly quickly because of the nature of what we're doing. Now, there's old TPRS and new TPRS, and new TPRS is really more focused on giving smaller chunks at a time. And so their production is very high. The old TPRS, we didn't focus on small chunks. We focused on, we did, but not so intensely as we do now, up to the point of production. Now we focus on a small sentence and we get them really strong and healthy on that one sentence. And then tomorrow we'll go to another sentence and build. And after 30 days, you have really strong ability with 30 sentences. And it's pretty amazing what you can do. So the advantage, it maximizes all of the atmospheric conditions or environmental conditions that facilitate language acquisition, mental representation growth, and oral language development, because everything's 100% comprehensible, and so your confidence is strong. Anytime you don't understand something, you're taught to let us know. Let us know when you're not understanding, because we're wasting our time if you're not understanding. So everything's 100% comprehensible. We're trying to stay 90+% in the target language with a little bit of mother language to explain things, to make things clear. And we make it repetitive through our questioning techniques. We make it interesting through our adding of characters and details, and so the students feel like they're involved in the process. It's not just us talking at them, telling a story. It's them entertaining me entertaining them, us entertaining each other, and really makes it the ideal situation for communication, which is where comprehensible input, the whole Krashen's idea was, input is defined as language we hear or see in a communicative context with a proper purpose of communication. So if you know what communication is, Bill Van Patten has a great definition that he got from Sandra Savignon. If you know what communication is, then you use communication in your classroom, that's where acquisition happens. And so for the student, it's comfortable, it's interactive, it's fun, it feels easy. They're like, wow, how am I learning so fast? I just must be brilliant. So for those reasons, this is great for the student. For the teacher, learning the skill is a little bit hard at first. Learning how to ask questions, get a feel of the class, when to read, to go to the sentence, when to go, that there's a little feel that comes there. But once you get it down, your prep goes way down. The time you spend outside of class prepping for the class is way lower, and you actually have a life, and your students are doing well, so you feel great about your job. So for teachers and students, it's just a win-win.
Yeah. One thing that that really struck me, that got me personally interested in TPRS, was that it felt like a very empowering kind of strategy for both teachers and students, for the students especially, but also for the teacher in a way, because you feel, when you feel that the students are there with you, you also feel, a boost of confidence. And I'm not expert. I just dip my feet a little bit in my Mandarin classes, but can you tell us, like, very simply, what does a TPRS class look like? Like some little things that happen in a TPRS class.
Yeah, typically a TPRS class is, I'll just describe my ideal TPRS class. My ideal TPRS class starts with the song. There's a lot of memory in song. It's fun. We make sure that we know what everything means before we sing it, because I hated singing songs I didn't understand what they mean. It's no fun. It's fun to read. So it's fun. Get some excitement. Change your state into this happy, ready to learn state through a song. And then we start with a review of what happened in the last class. We do that through what's called the daily read. And the daily read is just me typing up what just happened in the last class, 75 to 150 words, really short. We put that on the overhead, and it serves the function of, like if you're watching a series, a TV series, they start the show with, last week, this is what happened. That's kind of what happens in the daily read. So we go through that, we make sure, and it kind of gets us into the moment of where we were last time. And then we start in on, now we're using, prior to a couple of years ago, we just put some structure, some sentences or some words on the board, and we tried to make a story out of that. Now we have slides, and a slide has a sentence on it and a picture.
Okay.
And we start talking about that sentence in the picture, and it's all it's one snapshot. It's like a comic of the story. And we just explore everything we can about that story. So let's say there's a picture of George on there. We say, class, here's George. Oh, what's George like? And they come up with their details and their adjectives, and we start developing some backstory about him, and where's he come from? Where does he live? And we just create. We just start entertaining each other with the funniest details we could come up with, and who is this guy? And through that interaction, we start to develop some questions around it. We start being repetitive on these statements, and then we create what's called a manageable chunk. And a manageable chunk is more than one sentence, but less than overload.
Okay.
So somewhere in there, for example, one of my recent Chinese manageable chunks was 14 sentences long. So I was able to produce 14 sentences on this retell at the end. And that's kind of what we're looking for. We look at what can we tell at the end of the day, of the end of the lesson. And so we're developing that confidence and building it up at a word at a time, and then at a sentence at a time. And then we do a thing now called the describe the situation, where we say, okay, here's a summary of what we just talked about. How you guys comprehend it? And they tell me that, I'm a 4, I'm a 5. 5 means I got it easily. 4 means I got it, but it's not easy. 3 means I got it, but I had to look at the slide. 2 means even at the slide, I can't do it all. And 1 means I'm just really frustrated right now. So they give you a chance to tell you where they are. And after you do that, then you give them a chance to everybody to speak. And there are a couple ways to do that. You can put them in partners and let them talk back and forth, or you can say, hey, talk to your hand, or hey, pretend you're on the phone with your mom and retell the story to your mom. They get a chance in a safe environment to try out this language. And this came from Bill Van Patten, where he said, in order to learn to speak better, you need to speak for meaning. So they have to have opportunities to speak for meaning without criticism. We just observe. Teachers, we just observe. We don't correct grammar. We don't correct pronunciation. We are celebrating the fact that they're communicating an idea, whatever stage they're at in their language development. And that blows kids away. So once they get a chance to do it on their own, we call on several people to do it for the class, and we just interact with them for a moment. They tell their story, we celebrate and we applaud, and we tell it back to them like, yeah, this is what you said. And then at the end, I have a quiz. I like to always do a quiz at the end where everybody in the class will get 100%. But if you were not in class, you'll get a 0, because it's all based on what we came up with together today. There may be true, false questions or short answer questions. And this feels really good. They'll say, hey, class, true or false, George was in California. And if you weren't in class today, you would have no idea.
Right.
It's all based on the content that we communicated. And that, to me, and then if there's time left over, we sing the song and we leave happy. That's what's my ideal class.
That's great. So now most of the demonstrations of TPRS I've seen, and like videos, YouTube videos, or workshops that I have attended, were kind of focused on beginners levels. But can TPRS also be used at more advanced levels? For instance, I used to teach IB Italian at some point, and could I have used TPRS to teach my BHL or A-level students?
Absolutely. And here's the key. The reason we focus at the beginner level is because we want you to feel what it feels like as a student. Well, whenever I say anything that you don't know, if I say let's say I say a Japanese sentence to you, and even though you may know Japanese, that sentence is totally new words. You would feel like a beginner again.
Right.
And so now what we do at the advanced, intermediate, and advanced level is we do what's called searching for curriculum. We search for what they don't know. So we ask open-ended questions. George wants a Coke. Oh, well, class, why does George want a Coke? And we listen to their answers to see what they're trying to communicate with us. Mm-hmm. And if they answer perfectly well, then I'll delve deeper. And I say, well, does his mom want him to have a Coke? I'll just raise the bar there, right. Throw in some stuff that they're not familiar with and see how they react. And if they're like, ooh, well, I've just found my curriculum. Okay. And now I go back and I use all my TPRS skills that are beginner skills. Often I can go through them quicker because once you have some language, you can adapt and associate. You can get to it a lot quicker. Mm-hmm. But I can do those same skills to get them strong and healthy on this new chunk of curriculum, this new language that they don't know. Right. And then once they get that, we can move on to the next open-ended question and go to the next sentence. And so, yes, you can really do this at any level but you have to be searching. You have to be searching for their breakdown. Where are they breaking down? And once you find breakdown, then you use your TPRS skills to work on it. Otherwise, you're just entertaining each other. You're just having a blast, having fun, using the language. Yeah. So
you have to find the Goldilocks.
This is too hard. This is too easy. Yeah. Yeah. You find out where they break down. As soon as you find their breakdown, you switch modes and go, oh, we're no longer in the creation stage. Now we're in the confidence building stage. Okay. Now we need to build their confidence with questioning, with parallel characters, with details, making it fun, because we found where they broke down.
Right. Okay. So here is one thing that I'm really, really interested in, having your feedback, because right now I'm working mostly with very small groups or with individual students. So is there a way to apply TPRS to this kind of context? Because it seems like it's almost a methodology that requires
several people.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the minimum ideally it would be 3 students would be ideal. Mm-hmm. Can it be done with 1 student? Yes. But it is challenging for that student because they get no breaks.
Right.
It's always on all the time. My sessions would need to be shorter. Like I wouldn't do an hour and a half session. Mm-hmm. I would just be like, oh my gosh, my brain. Unless we did through a reading where they were understanding a lot. But it still can be done. And some of the tricks that we've done to make it work, because there are a lot of teachers out there that are coming to our trainings and they're asking this question. So we experiment. We're always experimenting. And so one of the ways that we've experimented is, well, having each person play multiple characters. So I'm George and I'm myself and I'm somebody else. So when the teacher says George, then I put my hat this way because this is when I'm George. I say, see, and they ask me the question. And then they say, Henry, see, and then they answer from the perspective of Henry. And then here they answer from the perspective of George, and here they answer from the perspective of themselves. So that's one way. But the idea is to have multiple characters. In order to get perspective down, you have to have multiple characters. The teacher can be multiple characters, and you can bring in puppets and talk to puppets. You can bring in anything that would create another character is the most difficult challenge for a one-on-one. But if once you get into it and you do that, I have seen it work wonderful. Like I can do my Chinese lesson all day long if I got to be different people and get to use it. It's fun.
So basically, I wouldn't think that that would be more difficult than any one-on-one class. I mean, it's still, it's a long time for one person to interact with the teacher for 50 minutes. So maybe using TPRS would make it actually more entertaining, I would
Oh
say.
yes. That if TPRS is anything, it's entertaining.
It is entertaining, yeah. I agree. And would you say, are there contexts where you feel that TPRS would not be the best strategy to acquire a second language?
Yeah, I think the oral story part of TPRS is not appropriate for heritage learners,
Okay.
for people who already speak the language.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let me take that back. There are heritage learners who understand everything but don't speak very well. It's good for them because
Okay.
it gives them those opportunities to speak. You just have to delve into what you talk about. What I mean is, like, if somebody who's already fluent trying to learn more, you don't need it. This is for fluency development, fluency and literacy development. Once you have, let's say once you're at the advanced low,
Mm-hmm.
go on and start involving yourself in the world and
Right.
and reading and educating yourself. I don't know that you need to co-create stories at that point.
Right. At that point, you can pretty much be on your own.
Yeah, that is our goal. In TPRS, our whole goal is to make ourselves obsolete. We want to get students to the point where they can teach themselves. They can participate in the world. They can read, and they can expand their own vocabularies. They can watch TV. They have all the tools necessary to comprehend and speak and interact and read. They don't need us anymore now, because learning a language is a lifelong thing. It's not something that,
Yeah.
oh, I got to level 4, I'm done. It doesn't
Nope.
work that way.
No. So one final question, Craig. Can you, for people who teachers or parents who are interested in TPRS, can you suggest some resources? If a teacher, for instance, wanted to read a study about TPRS, where would you suggest that they start?
To study about it?
Mm-hmm. Like something that explains a little bit, goes a little bit into the theory and practice of TPRS.
Yeah.
Gives them a little bit of background.
Yeah, so for parents, let's see, it'd be different for different people. So if I were an educator, I would go to a workshop.
Okay.
The workshop, it's a 12-hour experience. We get you we go over the second language acquisition principles that we subscribe to. There are a lot of ideas and theories and stuff out there, but we found some stuff that works. And so we talk about those. We give you an experience in a language you don't know. Then you get to practice the skills and you can see, is this going to work for me? So for an educator, I think that's the best place to start. Now, there are lots of blogs online. There are lots of things online that you can Google TPRS. The only problem with a lot of the blogs is that it's the old TPRS. There's a TPRS that's now more focused on both both mental representation,
Mm-hmm.
the acquisition plus interaction, leading to fluency faster. That's what we're doing now. And so some of the old blogs still have some of the old ideas that we think are now old. They're still like way ahead of what other people are doing, but just comprehensible input. That term CI, we like to call it CI, is comprehensible interaction.
Okay.
Because input is implied, right? You got to have input. Everybody, no, there's no disagreement on that. But we just want to give students opportunities to express themselves for meaning in a safe place. Stephen Krashen's problem with forced output was that it created the affective filter, and that stresses kids out. Well, if we can find a place to do it with no stress or low stress, and even eustress, right? When it's positive stress, look what I did. Oh my gosh, I just spoke. That is way motivating.
Right. So sorry for interrupting, Craig. When you say forced output, you refer to kind of pushing the students to speak when maybe they're not ready yet.
Yeah. So Bill Van Pat, I mean, Stephen Krashen talked about forced output, and as far as I understand, and I could be wrong, and so um, I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. Forced output is asking somebody to perform beyond what they're able.
Mm-hmm.
So if I ask you, okay, in Japanese, describe your family. And you're like, I don't know any. What are you talking about? I can't do that. What we're asking them to do is to describe a situation that they just spent 30 minutes learning,
Right.
and they do it to the best of their ability. So in my own definition, that's not forced output. But some people would be say, well, you're asking somebody to speak, so it must be forced output. And so if that's their definition, then yes, we are forcing output in which the student can always pass. We still say, if you're not ready, just say pass.
Mm-hmm.
So again, we're not forcing it in any way like that. So, but anyways, the problem with forced output was that affective filter, according to Krashen. Well, if we can get rid of that filter, then can I force you to talk? And so that's what we're doing. We're asking students, hey, Linda, describe the situation. The best, and when you're done, just say, I'm done. And you just do it however you do it. We don't correct grammar. We don't correct pronunciation. We correct communication. Let's say they say the wrong detail, like, what? I'm not in Honolulu. I'm in Idaho. What? That is different. They don't take that as correction.
Right.
They take it that you're listening to my messages. You are actually communicating with me. I'm expressing an idea and you're interpreting that idea and then negotiating if there's an issue. Nobody complains about communication. They only complain when you say, you don't actually say molto bene. You say, whatever it is. You say it like this. And now you're like, you're listening to my content or you're listening to judge me.
Right.
And as soon as they feel like you're judging them, it's gonna break down. Class is gonna break down. Your students are gonna be hesitant because now they're feeling judged. If you celebrate whatever they're communicating, that affective filter, that emotional filter is gone. There's no wall. They're like, I volunteer. I want to try. You're doing it right when you have people saying, hey, I want to try. And that's what we try to do in TPRS. So for parents, if parents want to go, they can go to our free resources section on our website. We have, 89 articles that they can read through and say, what does this study say? What does this study say? What does this study say? I think there's 79 studies that talk about TPRS. Those are all being compiled by Karen Lichtman, Lichtman. Karen Lichtman. She's compiling all of these. She's like the TPRS research guru.
Okay.
So she has a book. Anyway, so if you want to look into it, a lot of it's studies. So if studies are your thing, but there are blogs out there, and on our website we have what is TPRS. You can come and if you're a parent, you want to see what this is all about. I'll give one more thing if a parent is listening right now. We recently did a 100-hour study where we took some students, volunteers, taught them online for 100 hours, doing that, my ideal classroom, except for the song. There was no song.
Oh,
not my choice. But everything else, we had the daily read, we had the story, we had to describe the situation, and then the readings. And at the end of 100 hours, here are the results. 25, we tested them on the Apple test on oral proficiency. At the end, 25% of the students tested at the intermediate high level.
Wow.
Which is mind-blowing, since ACTFL says that typically would take 10 years of study.
Wow. That is
50% were at the intermediate low and intermediate mid, which ACTFL says takes 4 years. And then 25% were at the novice high, which is 2 years. So in basically one semester of Spanish 1, students were making a minimum of 2 years of gains, and 25% of them were at 10 years of gains. And so that kind of data really talks for itself. Not like these are going to be typical for, if I just start today. No, these are the masters of TPRS doing the lesson teaching.
But still,
the idea is that look what we can accomplish if we figure out how to do this better.
That sounds really, really interesting. Okay, Craig. So I think this is pretty much it. All my questions have been answered. And thank you so much for the time.
It's been my pleasure.
Okay. And actually, there is one last thing. And my last question about the studies about TPRS was a kind of personally motivated, because I know that in Italy, is not a system that is very well known.
Right.
So I was thinking of maybe translating something in Italian for I don't know, a publisher in Italy, a scholastic publisher in Italy. And so that was also one of the reasons behind my question. So, if you can think of anything that you think would be, perfect for that, and will let me know. I'd really appreciate that.
Now, in Italy, are they? I imagine they're trying to learn English.
Well, they do. They learn English. They learn Spanish. They learn French.
Okay.
English has got to be the most popular language, but there are also a lot of Spanish learners, French learners.
So we have a lot of people reaching out to us since we're on Zoom now.
Mm-hmm.
But a lot of people reaching out to us from around the world, and people are volunteering to help create our materials that we use in the United States into other languages. In fact, we just finished Italian. The level 1 is done, except for I think there's a couple things that are we're touching up, and then we're going to start level 2. So we have learning Italian for English speakers, which would be really easy to reverse.
Right.
Learning English for Italian speakers would not be hard to do. And we have Chinese for English speakers, English for Chinese speakers, Spanish or English for Spanish speakers. So we are getting more and more of these things translated so that they'll have some materials. The whole part is coming up. Where are you going to get these stories without making a ton of time? These things take so much time to create. So yeah, we can talk about that. We could talk about and then kind of some of the any of the materials, training materials. We can do that too, and maybe even do some trainings. That would be awesome. Yeah. I have a Spanish teacher, a lady from Bogota, Colombia, Saide Gonzalez. She is opening Latin America for us. She has the contacts. She's talking to people. She's giving workshops in Spanish, so people can learn. The teachers can learn. I mean, we could do that in Italian as well. I mean, that would be amazing.
That'd be interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Craig, again, thank you so much, and hopefully there will be another conversation.
I hope so.